It was probably the most chaotic week I've had in a long time because almost every day, even by the hour, the news was changing. They saw that this is something that really bothered me and that needed to be talked about. Even like minutes before I went on stage, the speakers that were with me, we totally understand. We have your back. We support you. My name was put on a list of students that supposedly supported Hamas, the terrorist organization, with their faces on it saying Harvard's leading anti-Semites. And so doxing was like really scary. They were worried for my safety.
Hi, and welcome to Indian Explorers. In this podcast, we talk about Indian success stories. I am Sabrina, and together with my co-host Amit, we will get to understand the journey of our guests and what drives them. Their optimism, patience, idealism, and courage. These are their attributes which we hope to bring to life in our conversations with them. So if you enjoy the show, please hit the subscribe button and share it with others. Amitu, today I am so thrilled to introduce Shruthi Kumar. Many of you may already have seen her after her commencement speech at Harvard went viral this summer for addressing Harvard University's intolerance of freedom of speech and civil disobedience for its treatment of 13 pro-Palestine student protesters. Shruthi is actively seeking to make this world a better place. She is an accomplished yogi who founded a nonprofit organization, Go Yogi, in high school. She was a finalist at the 2018 World Championships of Yoga Sports in Beijing. There is so much to say about her. She is a nationally recognized public speaker, was the finalist at the 2019 National Speech and Debate Association, the 2019 and 20 Voice of Democracy National First Place winner, and so much more. So let's jump in and get to know her. Shruthi, I've already told my daughter, she's 11, that she's going to watch this entire episode.
Oh, that's so sweet. Thank you.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Very excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, we're so excited to have you.
Where do we begin,
Yeah.
Sabrina? I think before jumping onto what she did at Harvard in her commencement speech, why don't we get her background? Like Shruti, maybe you can tell us a bit where you were born, when did you move to the US?
Yeah. So I was actually born here in the US in Omaha, Nebraska. I was born and raised here, did all my schooling here. And then after high school, started at Harvard. And so my parents obviously came here from India in the early 2000s. They were first in San Francisco, and then they also moved to Omaha because the IT industry used to be here before it moved to Chicago. And so they're both in IT and found themselves here in Omaha. So yeah, I'm calling in from Nebraska. I call Nebraska home. So yeah.
Is there a substantial Indian population in Omaha?
Yeah, so Omaha actually does have a pretty substantial Indian population. I'd say the Hindu temple was, constructed in the late 90s, and just has served as a hub and a community for the Hindu population here. And then we actually have a tri-faith center, which brings together all three Abrahamic religions. So there's quite a big Pakistani Muslim population as well. And so, yeah, there's a pretty robust South Asian community here, and has been my family and friends, kind of forms the village that I grew up in. So,
Oh, that's
yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah.
I had coffee with some Indian friends of mine yesterday, and
Mhm.
I told them you were going to be on it because I remember, and two of them were like, "Oh my God, I watched her speech." So I was like, they're like, "Send us
Yeah.
when it comes out." So let's talk about this speech, okay?
Harvard, do
Yeah.
you hear us? I think we need to give context to people who don't, know what happened. I think we'd like to hear it from your words, Shruti. Like walk
Yeah.
us through what was going through your mind and a little bit of context.
Yeah, so I, just graduated Harvard. So this past school year, I was a senior, and there was just a lot going on campus throughout the course of our senior year. In the fall, there was a lot of conversation started around Israel-Palestine issues on campus. There was a lot of student activism that got started. And then, if we fast forward to the spring, obviously encampments were ongoing across college campuses across America, Harvard included. And so Actually, earlier that semester was when, there's an audition process to be the commencement speaker. And so, I had a speech background in high school and really missed public speaking. I really enjoy it. And so I thought, why not give it a shot? So I auditioned, early in March, April timeframe. And, it was about 3 rounds of auditions in front of some of the, high profile professors and administrators that form this committee that selects the 3 student speakers who speak at commencement. And it's a big deal because it's like 35,000 people on commencement day. And so they're very kind of meticulous with this process of selection. And so at the time, of course, like my speech was still on the power of not knowing and talking and contextualizing the experience we've all had as students. But as the encampment progressed, my speech just changed as it naturally would in response to what's going on campus. Working with the committee, for almost 4 or 5 weeks leading up to commencement, we all worked together to really edit this speech to make it what it was when I delivered it on day of. And so what was, definitely different from, I think, other experiences was the day before commencement, Harvard Corporation released a decision saying that 13 of our senior peers, classmates wouldn't be graduating because of their participation in the pro-Palestine encampment. And so because that decision was released the day before commencement, it was sitting very heavy on my heart. I was, frequently talking to my peers who had worked really hard in their time in undergrad, were set up to go on to do amazing things post-grad, and whose lives would be disrupted because they wouldn't receive their degrees. And so, that decision I made the night before.
What did they do? The 13 that makes them different to the others? Were they, I don't know, physical, they damaged property, or were they the leaders that instigated through chat?
So it was actually pretty unclear how Harvard decided those 13 wouldn't receive degrees versus all the hundreds of other students that participated in the encampments. There were grad students, there were, members of the community participating, faculty, who all participated in these encampments. Graduate students were allowed to graduate. The deans of all the graduate schools allowed their students to graduate. It was just the undergraduate college that withheld degrees. And why these students had their degrees withheld is unclear. There are some that participated more extensively in the encampments, and others were only there for a few hours. And so I really don't know how they checked and vetted people to determine who receives what type of punishment. And that's part of what was unjust, was that I have friends that were there for a few hours during the daytime, maybe spent, just engaged in part of the protest, the peaceful protest during the day. And of course, there were others that were much more involved. I don't think it was very clear who received what punishment and why.
And do we know the status of these 13 students? Are they friends of yours? Like, are they getting their degrees? Or
yeah, so I'd say about 5 of the 13 were people that I knew well, my acquaintances and peers at the college. There are also majority, people of color, students of color, whose degrees were withheld, of which several were South Asian. And that's kind of how my connection to the protesters was, just kind of the students that were South Asian whose degrees were withheld. I heard their stories a lot closer than I did the others. And I think so. They'd been, they'd been petitioning the admin to get their degrees back. And I think about a month and a half ago, 11 out of the 13 students received their degrees back. So that was awesome to hear. And that was good news. I'm unsure what, again, the process was for the 2 students that they decided to hold back, but 11 out of the 13 did end up getting their degrees, which was really awesome. And since the speech, if you follow the Harvard news, there's been a faculty rebellion. There's been just a lot of conversations with the deans and the higher level admin around freedom of speech on campus and what that looks like to create an intellectually diverse environment. And so, that's kind of what the post-speech context looks like.
Share a paragraph of that speech. Your speech was entitled "The Power of Not Knowing," and then towards the end of it, and correct me if I'm wrong at any point, you take a pause and then you say, "As I stand before you today, I must take a moment to recognize my peers, the 13 undergraduates." And everyone starts applauding. The 13 undergraduates in the class of 2024 who will not graduate today. I'm deeply disappointed by the intolerance for freedom of speech and the right to civil disobedience on campus. What is happening on campus is about liberty. This is about civil rights and upholding democratic principles. The students had spoken. The faculty had spoken. Harvard, do you hear us? Harvard, do you hear us? Like, it's moving, as someone who's
It's
a lot
gutsy.
older than you, I'm so proud of you for taking a stand. You're
Thank
like
you.
inspirational to our children, to us. Like, I'm so impressed.
Yeah, I
Thank
want to
you.
know, Shruti, I want to know, like, what did mom and dad, boyfriend, closest friends, what did they think? I'm assuming you consulted with them before having the guts to make that decision that you did, because you knew this was going to be controversial.
Yeah, so it was probably the most chaotic week I've had in a long time was the week of graduation because almost every day, even by the hour, the news was changing in terms of what was happening on campus and what the students' verdict would be. I was on the edge of my seat pretty much that whole week. And so when the corporation finally released their decision the day before commencement, I'd been talking to my parents. My grandparents were there with me too. They, saw how frustrated I was. They watched me have conversations with some of the students that weren't getting their degrees in my very own dorm, in my house, in the courtyard, the dining hall. And, they saw that this is something that really bothered me and that needed to be talked about. And, my parents and grandparents, they were definitely hesitant as any family would be. It's a big moment. They were worried for my safety. In the fall, I was one of the students that I was part of the South Asian Association, and a bunch of our names had been released publicly, and I'd been doxxed. My name was put on a list of students that supposedly supported Hamas, the terrorist organization. So in the fall, it was very scary because people were worried for their careers, their professional futures, their physical safety. There was a truck on campus in the fall with students, majority hijabis, but brown students, right? With their faces on it saying Harvard's leading anti-Semites. And so doxing was like really scary in the fall. And my parents knew about that, kind of supported me through that. And so leading up to commencement, they didn't want anything like that to happen. They didn't want me to put myself in risk or in harm's way. And they said, whatever you do, just make sure you run it by the people that are leading your committee or whatever. And so I was working with a very close group of professors and students. So it was 3 speakers and 3 professors. And one of the professors was one of my good advisors in the history of science department as well. So I felt very comfortable kind of sharing. I shared with them along the entire process what my thoughts were, what I was hoping to say. And so the night before, I sent them a picture of the note card that I had written, saying, hey, like, I really feel strongly about saying this. What are your thoughts? And they were like, we totally understand. We have your back. We support you. Like, you got this. And so even like minutes before I went on stage, the speakers that were with me, the 2 other boys who were giving a speech that day, I was rehearsing it in front of them. I was like, what do you think? How do you think this sounds? Should I say, Harvard, do you hear us? Harvard, can you hear us? Like, we were wordsmithing right up until I was on stage. And it was really a team effort. It was, the other students and the professors that helped me, get the courage and strength to be able to say what I said. And really, it was channeled all from the students that were involved in the protests and sacrificed a lot to make a point. And so, yeah.
That's great to know because social media and the media made it seem like no one
Right.
knew about it, right? That you
Yeah.
took
And
the professor's words and did it on your own. So it's good to know
right.
you had professors at Harvard
Yeah.
behind you on this.
Exactly. Yeah, that was something that I didn't anticipate with the media, but also like makes sense in terms of, clickbait or,
Exactly.
headlines is
Yeah.
like off script and wanting it to um wanting to make it seem like it was out of nowhere, but yeah, it was definitely a group effort. So,
Remind me as well, the whole Bill Ackman. Bill Ackman, Sabrina, is this white, rich billionaire. I think it's called Perishing Capital or something. He's an influential guy. And
Yeah.
he didn't just tweet, he wrote an essay like a massive essay about how I think the Harvard number one is a black woman called Claudine Gay. Is that her name? Claudine
Mhm.
Gay?
Right.
Yeah. And basically saying that Claudine Gay is doing a horrible job and, supporting anti Semites and, not protecting the Jews, the students, and basically just doing an awful job. Was this before or after your commencement speech? I don't remember the timing. And what did you think about that whole Bill Ackman versus Claudine?
So the whole, Claudine Gay, Bill Ackman situation happened in the fall of our senior year. And so this was, long before the commencement process even started. But yeah, I think my kind of when I started following was when Claudine Gay was selected to be the next president. And, all the students were very excited to see, the second woman ever in the history of Harvard to be president. I remember myself just feeling like, oh, wow, like, it's not just a line of white men in the past. Like it's someone who looks, I'm not black, but someone who looks somewhat like me. Like I just identified a little bit more, with seeing her in that post and was excited to see what type of change that would bring. And then of course, like her alongside two other presidents of colleges had testified in front of Congress when the senator was questioning about anti-Semitism on campus. And I think her response was one that a lot of students criticized for being inadequate for different reasons.
I agree.
I think, for people on either side of the issue felt that it was an inadequate response. And I think that's a valid criticism to have.
She wasn't strong enough, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
She didn't go A or B. She just wasn't
Right.
strong. She
Yeah.
didn't support the right things, and also she was very non-supportive in terms of responding. And she wasn't
Yes.
the only one. All three of them were
Exactly.
awful.
And I
Yeah.
and I think that I found interesting was that it wasn't just her, it was the other presidents as well. And that's when I started thinking about, okay, her as Claudine Gay, right, as an individual versus her as someone wearing the hat of the president of Harvard College, right? And that's when like I started thinking about like, okay, why is she saying what she's saying? And how is kind of the bureaucracy and the money influencing her words? And that type of thing. Right. So I think that part is not very transparent when it comes to businesses and institutions that are run by money. But that's kind of when I started seeing it. And soon after that, Bill Ackman's thoughts on DEI and everything were just kind of like mind blowing to read. And it was also like, oh, like this is definitely a big donor of Harvard's. And what he has to say is taken with a large like grain of, salt or a bag of cash, essentially. And so, yeah. And so, I think, with Claudine Gay stepping down, what I really disliked to see was that it was plagiarism. It was like a witch hunt where they were going after her entire academic past, like trying to find plagiarism happening. And I was like, that has never happened to my knowledge in the history of any other Harvard president. Have we dug up their old academic papers to find some bouts of plagiarism, right? And like everyone, academic honesty is important, but we've never vetted a president like that. Why are we starting now and why her? Right. And so those are the questions that I had in terms of, that whole era. And I think students, as much as we were critical of the way that she responded to things going on, we still were disheartened to see her have to step down and resign. And it all happened while we were, at winter break, for home for Christmas and the holidays. And so we were just following the news from home.
I think I saw that they got Bill Ackman's wife as well for
Yes.
plagiarism
Yes.
as a result of that. And I think the issue is Harvard is Harvard the number one brand in the world? I mean, in education, is Harvard more well known than Apple? I mean, Harvard is it the richest endowment fund they've got? Is it like 100 billion, 120 billion? I mean, they have so much money that it moves. Everyone wants to know what's happening at Harvard.
Right.
Yeah,
Right?
I think I don't know where it ranks in all of that, but I would say definitely that people like what's happening on campus is on a spotlight. And as Harvard students, it's like definitely a different experience from going
Yeah.
to any other college because everything you say and do is automatically on spotlight just a little bit more than your peers, right?
Yeah. Can I just say something about Harvard? Like I know a
Yeah.
couple of guys that did this executive management program of 1 year or
Hmm.
2 years, and those two guys are now uber successful. Like I don't know anyone who has Harvard associated with them and is not done well or doing well. Like I genuinely think Harvard is the Goldman Sachs of banks, like the Apple of IT. Harvard is it. If you can get into Harvard and come out of Harvard, you have a good future ahead of you. Is that why you went to Harvard? Or what was, was it your parents forcing you to go? What was your thinking?
I think my thinking was when I was in high school, obviously, like my parents wanted me to, reach my fullest potential. That was their goal. I honestly had no idea what Ivy Leagues like really were or what they looked like or what this liberal arts education was really about. Like I had no idea what any of that looked like. All I knew was that the education there was supposedly really good, and that's all I had heard about it. And so yeah, I think my parents and I, we'd like definitely, in high school worked with that goal in mind, but I don't think it was ever like pressure. Like, I think if I had fulfilled my potential, if I had, participated in speech and yoga and kind of like just explored all that, I was able to do and wanted to do. And that's what my parents' goal was for me to find my strengths, weaknesses, my interests, my passions, and make the most of them. And in that process, the application was obviously successful. And, it was a dream at that point that came true. I had never expected that I would get in. But the minute I did, and the minute the financial aid made it so much easier as well to go there, it was such an easy decision to make.
Just reading
Um,
about your high school
yeah.
background, I could have told you were going to get in. But you went in, correct me if I'm wrong, but you went in, you were going to start study medicine, correct?
Yeah, I
Is
was
that what
pre-med. Yeah, I was pre-med and I was going to be a neuroscience major when I started. So,
and
yeah.
then you became,
And then
what,
yeah, so then I ended up majoring in history of science and economics with a minor in human evolutionary biology. Yeah.
and I wanted to bring up a couple other things. You've been, it seems like you've been a natural activist, always standing up for your beliefs and other people. I read that you were on campus standing up for affirmative action. And then you start 100% period secure is what you call it. Tell
Hmm.
us what that is.
Yeah, so making Harvard 100% period secure was kind of this campaign, small like task force thing I started my sophomore year while I was in undergrad. A lot of students were working on menstrual equity on campus, but it was more in a temporary form. It was like, handouts, monthly handouts type thing. And I just felt like the access to menstrual products shouldn't rely on student activism. So I wanted to make it a part of the infrastructure of the school. So I started working with the operations and facilities teams at Harvard, the senior, directors of operations and things like that to install menstrual product dispensers in all bathrooms across campus. So what I noticed was that the bathrooms had dispensers that were either broken or empty or required coinage. They just weren't stocked frequently. And so when I found myself in need of products on a Tuesday in the library, I was faced with, the options of either walking back to my dorm or walking to a CVS, both of which would have made me late to class. And I would be literally bleeding through my pants on my way to get products. And I thought, if an educational environment is supposed to be built for students like me, then why am I facing this issue? And if I'm facing this issue, there's no doubt that the other 50% of the population that menstruates is also experiencing some form of this insecurity on campus. And so, yeah, we did this project. It took about 2 years to do a landscape analysis of all bathrooms at Harvard, and basically run stats on what percentage of them actually had free and accessible menstrual products. We found only 24% of products of bathrooms on campus actually had free and accessible products. And so we ended up installing dispensers in, over
It was
817 bathrooms.
800 bathrooms.
Yeah. Yeah. In order to bring that number closer to 100%. So, yeah.
Fantastic.
I think, Sabrina, we found Naima's mentor.
But trust me, Naima's my daughter, my 11-year-old.
Oh, that's so
I already
cute.
told her, I was like, You are going to watch this episode. You know what? Yes, I would love for you to be her mentor, please.
Oh, wait, yeah, I would love to. I love talking to I have a younger sister myself, so
How old is your sister?
she's 17, I want to say. Yeah, we're
Is
4 years
she,
apart.
is she a go-getter like you? Is she as motivated?
I mean, we're two entirely different people, but she's amazing at everything she does. She's more into singing, and she'll be starting as a freshman at Columbia this fall. So she's very excited about making use of the scene, the music scene in New York. So
Oh,
yeah, she's awesome.
What are you doing now, Shruti? Where's the income
Yeah.
coming from? Like, tell us a little bit about your
Yeah.
what.
So
what's for Shruti?
yeah, one thing about me is like, the power of not knowing was not just the title of the speech, but also quite literally the way I live my life. I had a lot of things on my mind when it came to what I wanted to do post grad. I knew I wanted to do graduate school at some point. Law school was on my mind after having written a thesis in the history of science on Siddha medicine, which is a type of medicine from South India. I was really interested in pursuing that further as well through a PhD. So I had a million ideas in mind, but at the same time, having just graduated undergrad, I also did want to start working, explore the world of business and entrepreneurship, because I've also been very entrepreneurial in the ways that I have thought about Go Yogi and, menstrual equity work, and just felt like I wanted to expose and give myself those skills as well. So I, right now, as of now, have decided to work for a year or so, a year or 2 years probably, and then go back to grad school. I'll be in Seattle in about a week, and I'm working at a company called Trilogy Search Partners. They work in search fund investment, which is a subsect of uh, private equity investments, but they work mostly with small businesses. It's this community called Search Fund. It's pretty small, and not a ton of people know about it, but it just kind of is more entrepreneurial than regular finance. So yeah, I'm excited to kind of gain skills, learn and meet new people, and
And then think
explore
about
some of
it.
the
You
yeah,
you give me the
exactly.
vibe. You give me a
Hmm.
vibe that if you decide to start a company, I'm
Hmm.
in. Like, I'm in. Like, I'll back you, whether it's financially or I'll work
Awesome.
under you.
I
I'll
will take
work
you up
for
on that.
you. Like, she gives me that vibe, Sabrina, that whatever she's going to do, she's
Yeah.
going to figure it out and she's going to find a way. Is that
Yeah.
what Harvard instills on somebody? Because she's got that impressive
It's
vibe that I don't
innate
get from
with
many
you.
people.
I think it's an innate with you because you've done a lot even before going to Harvard.
Hmm.
So
So
it's her parents.
Yeah.
It's her parents' upbringing, is it, Sabrina?
I don't know. I don't know. What do you think,
I
Shruti?
guess it's a mystery. No, I don't know. I think I mean, one, I'll definitely take you up on your support when I launch something in the future. But two, I don't know. I think the way that I my upbringing has been, it's been a lot of mindfulness, meditation. I'm very in touch with, I guess, what it is that I love and want to do in with the world and in my days and in my hours. I think we all have 24 hours, every day when we start our days, and I just really like to make sure that I'm doing what I love during that time. Ideally, my definition of success is really being able to be paid to do what I love. And not everyone gets that in life. Sometimes you have to just work to make the money, or maybe you do something you love, but you're not sustaining, maybe the level of luxury that you want to have in life. And so I think success for me is just being able to find that sweet spot of being able to have the things that I want to have and do the things I want to do, but also love what I'm doing while I'm doing it. And so, yeah, I think I've just always listened to my heart. Like, I don't know where menstrual equity came from. It was not something that I thought about much in high school, but somehow, like freshman year, sophomore year, it was really on my mind very regularly. And instead of like, sometimes we question the things that come into our mind, right? We're like, why am I all of a sudden like interested in this? I tried to stop doubting myself and stop questioning and just go with what I'm being told to do. And that's kind of the same feeling. Like I described, the same feeling with the speech and everything was like, it wasn't like, if it was just me alone up there on stage, I don't know that it would have been able to be possible, but it was literally the strength of, my peers, my family, and everyone that was able to take me up there. And so a lot of these things that I think I've done in my life, it's not like a conscious, really like decision to do so. It just kind of like, it's the flow of life, and I just kind of jump in with it. I don't know. It's hard to describe. And I sound fluffy when I speak this way, but,
No, you don't.
um,
And I think it's the first time you've actually stumped my co-host, because
mm,
in over 50 episodes,
oh,
we always ask our guests, what is your definition of success? And you
mm.
just brought it up, and I saw his eyes go big a little bit. He's like, God, this girl's good.
No, one question less, Sabrina. One question less, I think.
Tell me about Go Yogi. You started this,
Yeah.
and you mentioned that you've been doing meditation since you were younger. Tell
Yeah.
us what that is.
Yeah. So I've been in yoga classes since like first grade. And of course, at the time, as a young kid, you're not really invested in like the spiritual progression of one's life journey. But as I became older, entered, middle school, high school, you start to feel like a baby amount of the life stressors, anxieties that you're about to feel in your adult life, right? That's the first time you encounter social anxiety, academic pressure, peer pressure, all of these things. And so having grown up in a space that is, very yoga, mindful meditation-esque, that was kind of my first, that was kind of my like go-to space whenever I was feeling stressed or anxious, I would kind of practice meditation. And in high school, I really found it helpful for my, to just manage myself. And so I did my teacher's training in India. I spent 200 hours, 2 weeks there doing a 200-hour teacher training at the campus where I also grew up. A chapter of that is what I grew up learning here in Omaha. It's called the Universal Peace Foundation of North America. And they had a chapter in Omaha. I think they have one in SF. And so the headquarters of that is located near Coimbatore in South India. So I went there, did my teacher's training. And when I came back, I was just like, oh my God, like this is such a powerful tool for students to have. Like this would be a game changer, because I was showing up in my high school hallways, noticing everyone fatigued, tired all the time, just, stressed about the next exam, about their game performance, about their, maybe their art performances. And I was just like, why are we living in a perpetual state of stress? Right. And I, started working with my administrators, and I was like, is there any way we can do a few minutes of meditation before we start the school day? And it was a project that started in my high school. I would record meditation lessons at home, and then like play like a meditation music in the background. So I'd have these audio files, and we would literally play them over the intercom after the Pledge of Allegiance. Teachers would turn off the lights. Students would put their iPads, laptops away. And everyone, the whole school would just be quiet for like 2-3 minutes, taking a moment to center themselves. And then we would jump into class. And so we found it was very useful. My school continued to do it even years after I'd graduated. And I wanted to take it to schools across the country. So we formed like student board and advisory boards, and kind of started expanding it much more. And I worked on it in college as well. And then junior year, found myself a bit more busy. And so it's currently, on pause, but we'll definitely be revisiting it soon. But it was definitely like one of the biggest learning experiences. I'd have like pitch decks and go to principals, and,
That's great.
you just, yeah. So it was really an awesome experience.
The positive feedback you received was
Mm-hmm.
so gratifying.
Yeah, like I had never done something like that before, where, we worked in schools in India as well. We worked at a school called Udavam Karangal in Chennai. And they, are a school for orphans, or, student kids that had been abandoned by their parents. And so we worked, in colleges and schools like that. And I just get like videos via WhatsApp or photos from these schools and these teachers being like, hey, like, this has really helped me. I had a really tough home life, and I came to school, and, what was going on at home was still in my brain as I was supposed to learn chemistry. And like taking those 2 minutes to just pause really helped me, like, put the home stuff on hold, and helped me learn my chemistry better when I was supposed to be focused on chemistry. And it helped people, I think, bring focus to the classroom, and actually made people more productive in a way that like meditation often doesn't feel productive for kids that are trying it. It's usually pretty boring and, not fun, is how like kids, have that
With my
experience. But
daughter, and she's like,
mhm.
I could feel
Yeah.
the energy after like a couple of minutes, and she's like looking around.
Yeah.
What do I do?
Yeah, during my yoga classes, I would see kids like with their eyes closed and then they'd like peek an eye open to see if
Yeah.
I was watching them. Yeah. So it's just like very fun to work with kids on it, but also to see how it can help, multiple generations of people. And I think while I was in Omaha, I also worked with like Alzheimer's patients at a care home. And so I was just seeing like from elementary school to like Alzheimer's patients, mindfulness and meditation was so incredibly helpful. It's something I practice every day and that I hope to take with me wherever I go. So, yeah.
Are you interested in moving back to India at some point and seeing where your
Um,
parents were, like their upbringing? Because I think once you have the skill set and you reach financially where you want to be, and
mhm,
family, kids, whatever you want to, whatever journey you decide to take, I think someone like you could help so much in India,
mm.
back home.
Yeah, I mean, I've always felt a very strong connection to India. We would visit, every other summer growing up. We actually almost moved there when I was in middle school. So I actually did go to school in India for like 3, 4 months in sixth grade. And just, I mean, it was an international school, but I remember just the experiences of being close to family, my grandparents, my cousins, extended family members. It really feels like, everyone that cares about you and unconditionally loves you is in India for me. And so, yeah, I think, I don't know. I've never like lived there or conducted a life there the way that I have in America. I think there's a lot of freedoms here that we take for granted on a daily basis. Generally I can dress the way I want. I can speak the way I want. I can act the way I want in America and still be respected. And I don't always feel that way when I'm in India. So there's things that need to change for sure. And I think those things, if we can push for in the Indian government, would make it feel more like home for me. And so yeah, I think there's a world in which I'd move back to Nebraska. There's a world in which I'd move potentially to be closer to family. But yeah, I mean it's all up in the air as of
Yeah.
now.
The reason why I bring it up is because I
Yeah.
think that your project on the periods, the menstrual
Yeah.
cycles, I think that in India is
Hmm.
a printing machine,
Yeah.
like money printing machine. It's just such a huge opportunity, and I'm not just talking hospitals. I'm talking about education,
Hmm.
corporates, IT parks,
Yeah.
uh, everywhere in India. Um, I mean, I hate to bring this up, but I'm going to. I think India has one problem. Like, okay, there's a million problems, but India's number one problem is the image to the world that we're not able to solve
Mm.
the rape cases. I've been in Chile 12 years now,
Mm.
and there's not been a day, and I mean this, there's not
Mhm.
been a day in 12 years where I can pick up a newspaper in Chile and there's always something about theft or robbery
Mhm.
or some sort of a petty crime, car theft, whatever it is. And when I was before Chile, I was 9 years in India. And the
Mm.
9 years I was in India, I could not pick up a Times of India without
Mm.
an incident of rape
Mhm.
in the paper. And obviously now what's happened in Calcutta is beyond words. It's I mean, for a guy like me in Chile to cry over something that's happening in Calcutta and be absolutely with nothing, like just no control.
Mhm.
I felt the same way with what's happening in Palestine. But I don't have the solution for rape in India. And I have a chat group with some friends, and I asked them the question. I said, "What's the solution for rape in India?" And nobody answered.
Mm.
And one guy sent me a message privately saying, "Difficult conversation, too long a conversation. Let's do this in person." And I genuinely
Mm.
don't know what the solution is, but maybe somebody from Harvard can help us, because it's mind blowing what's
It's
happening there.
it's sickening. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just don't know what the solution is.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I have a solution either, but I think there are, a series of things that I've noticed just in the way we talk about it, in the way we discuss it that can be changed, right? I mean, everyone knows the victim, her name, like her story. I feel like we also need to discuss the perpetrator, what his actions were, what his name was, put him on the spotlight and, like embarrass. I don't know what needs to be done to necessarily say to people that this is not okay, right? Obviously, like I've heard, I have, on Instagram, like my friends' moms and aunties and uncles posting about this. People have tossed around death penalty. People have tossed around, other forms of punishment. And it's hard to say exactly what's right and what's wrong. I think, when it comes to, you know, let alone rape, like she was also murdered, like that is also like homicide, right? Like, and we do have certain states that have death penalty for homicide. So I don't know, like I don't think we're treating it as an exception because it's a woman and because it's sexual assault, but it's not an exception, right? It is what's happening very regularly. And it's not just this doctor. That's the thing.
Yeah.
If every case was to make news, there would be no room for any other news.
That's what it takes, right? Maybe
Yeah. And
all these cases to be part of the news there.
exactly.
It's daily, Sabrina. It's daily.
Right.
It's every 16 minutes.
Yeah. And it's absolutely like horrifying because it's not even like, you can't even say that it's someone you don't know, that it's someone like, scary looking man. It's like people that like within their families, it's like uncles you're related to. It's who are we supposed to trust? And like, of course, the men will say, not all men are bad, but as women, it is only advantageous to us. It is only like in the interest of our own safety to not trust men, right? And to like think that that is the standard. It is what's happening. And we have to put ourselves in a position to be safer. But at the same time, like, we can't, it's hard to walk the world believing that people are good people when you read stuff like this. And so,
yeah, is India the only country in the world where the trains have separate compartments for men and women? Like, if you look at Europe or China, or Japan, there's no way you're going to separate men and women. Like,
yeah.
but why is India still the only country that happens? Obviously, it needs to happen because of how men are there, but
Yeah.
it's just like,
I think honestly, measures like that to me are a Band-Aid solution. They're not like, sure, they temporarily provide safety and protection for women, but if, what really should be the case maybe we have more cameras in trains, and the minute the camera, we have AI that is so advanced nowadays. I am sure the camera can pick up on somebody touching someone inappropriately. The minute the camera picks up on that, we have immediate reaction, response, and discipline, right, for that perpetrator. And I think like stuff like that, I think it's in Singapore where you can't even chew gum publicly. Like the cameras pick up on that. We have the technology to pick up on small changes in human behavior. We have the technology to do so. I don't know why we're not employing it in a way that corrects men's behavior. Because if there's a strong enough punishment in place, I genuinely do think that'll do more help than any temporary solution we're brainstorming, because women should be able to take whatever train car, stand next to whoever, and still feel safe.
And wear whatever they want.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's the worst. I think I'd written about this actually 2 years ago in the Harvard Political Review.
To bikini. Oh my
yes.
God. Did you read this one?
No.
Oh,
No.
Can you tell me a little bit about it?
Yeah, so my mom had showed me a movie in Tamil called Are, and it's about clothing of women. And at the beginning of this movie, they showed a cartoon of the story of Nangeli, who is this is like a legendary story from a lower caste woman from Kerala, who during the Travancore kingdom there was a breast tax in place. So lower caste women had to pay a tax in order to cover their breasts, meaning they were expected to just walk without binding their chests in public. And one girl, Nangeli, felt it upon herself that she wanted to cover her breasts. She didn't feel comfortable walking the streets with men of different castes kind of eyeing her or whatever. And moreover, it is her human right to wear or to not wear, right? And so she started wearing, a blouse or whatever to cover her breasts. The tax collector comes knocking at her door saying, you have to pay a tax if you're going to cover your breasts. She said, I'm not paying a tax, cuts off her breasts, puts them on tax collector's tray and dies in protest, like bleeds out dying. Interestingly, legend has it her husband committed sati, which is one of the very few instances of men killing themselves after the woman has died in support of her. And this all sparked the Channa revolt, which is a lower caste revolt against the breast tax. Eventually, the kingdom recalls this tax, and it's kind of a win for lower caste people in Kerala, right? And so this story was like really, really impacted me, just got me thinking about, free the nipple versus Nangeli's story. Like, whether we're covering up or whether we're not, there's always criticism and there's, always something to be said. And it's because feminism is operating in response to the male gaze. And so in this article, I discuss at the very end, I discussed this headline that I came across where it was like India's tourist minister recommends people cover up to avoid being raped or something like that, to dress differently. And it's like, what kind of advertisement is that for the country of India if you have to warn people to watch what they wear in order to, it's just like, it's mind blowing. Like I was embarrassed that was the case as an Indian American, like completely embarrassed that that's the case. And so, yeah, I think the courts, the justice system, the technology we have, it's all there. We can have solutions that correct men's behavior rather than just safeguarding, or telling women to behave differently. And I think, I don't know if you got a chance to see the principal's notes after the incident in Kolkata. The principal responded by saying, like, female doctors don't walk by yourself, don't, have like pepper spray, this, that, and the other. And like, instead of making recommendations to the women, I really think the conversation just needs to shift toward, how are we educating our sons? Maybe keep your boys in the house after 10 p.m. because they can't be trusted to be out on the streets. Don't let them go out past a certain time. I don't know. Like, what are the creative ways we need to rethink the way we
I mean,
parent?
He was even a volunteer cop. He was meant to be.
Yeah. So yeah,
like,
it's just.
I'm also concerned more about the villages and the rape that's happening within the family and the husbands. When they drink a little bit, and also what percentage of those cases are actually reported.
Right.
Yeah. So those, no one does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shruthi, you've done a lot in your life already in your early 20s since,
How old, Shruthi, how old are you?
I'm 22.
22. Wow.
22. Yeah. Tell us about some obstacles you faced along the way.
Yeah.
Small ones.
Heartbreak, bad boyfriend.
He's dying to ask you this question.
Yeah, he really wants to know.
We want to know. We want to know the juice. This can't just be a rosy picture. We want to know the bad bits as well about you.
Oh, the bad bits. I mean, I don't know. I think lately I've just been, well, to answer your question, I know you're very curious whether I have a boyfriend or not. I don't have a boyfriend, so I'm single and, ready to mingle, as I would say.
Can I ask, like, when you say that, I know you were born in America, but are your parents of the arranged marriage, or is it up to you to decide who you marry?
My parents had an arranged marriage, but they don't have any expectations for me. And so, I think they're honestly okay. Whether I choose to get married or not, it's not like, if I end up not getting married, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world. They haven't really, expressed any kind of, expectations for me. But yeah, I think, I don't know. I've gotten to meet a lot of really cool people. I've, spent a lot of time doing a lot of things. I'm like, I love talking to people. I'm excited to meet people. My parents aren't really setting anything up at the moment, but it's on my mind as I'm approaching my mid-20s, but it's not like super pressing because, I think it's also very different. I don't know in the dating scene right now, but as a Harvard graduate, sometimes it does feel like people like that can be a plus point for men in the dating scene because you have a certain degree, you're going to make a certain amount of money. For women, it might be a little different in a heterosexual context because you might be making more money, you might be more successful, you might be, and so I don't know. I think it is a little different for women. I would say coming out of a space like that. And so I would just say, I hope no one's intimidated, because that's kind of the vibe that I feel like I've gotten in the past. But yeah.
Sabrina, are you thinking what I'm thinking?
Were you thinking about someone?
Yeah,
Oh yeah. Oh,
our
that's so
cousin.
weird. Yes, I was
Our,
thinking
Oh,
it too.
we
I'm
have
like,
we have a 22-year-old cousin, Viren.
oh, do you?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
he's a good-looking guy. Good looking guy too, Sabrina.
really good look.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
It's
Well,
very fun and
definitely.
sweet. Yes.
Okay, you
Yeah.
have my number and my email, so but yeah, I don't know. I'd say obstacles or challenges is really just I think a lot about life and people, and I think, with the current events going on, with a lot of the issues, the way politics is and everything in the world, it is hard to know like who to trust, who not to trust, who has like your best interests in mind. So that's just kind of stuff that I'm thinking about, is like, the people in my circle, the people that I choose to have close to me, making sure that they're truly good people with authentic interests.
Yeah.
Do you trust Vivek Ramaswamy and Donald Trump?
Not exactly. Not exactly. I would say
I wanted Sabrina's reaction. Sorry, Shruti.
I'm
I
like,
wanted Sabrina's.
no.
love this girl.
What are your thoughts on Vivek
No, let's.
Ramaswamy?
He doesn't live here. He doesn't live in the US, but he has such
Mm.
strong admiration for
So
these two
no.
men.
So Sabrina thinks that if
Hmm.
I lived in America, I would vote as a Republican. That's what Sabrina
Oh,
thinks, right?
okay.
Actually, I am. You can't be a human, a decent person, and not be a fan of Obama's, right? And Michelle and Barack yesterday just crushed it. They slayed, right? Actually, I am, if I lived in America, like Sabrina, a Democrat, right? However, for me, America's support or Biden's support or blank check to Israel, seeing 30,000, 40,000, 50,000 people dying is for me not a red flag. For me, it's a reason not to vote for that party. Yeah, for me. Again, I'm not talking about micro taxes and also for me, I don't like the Roe versus Wade. I think a woman should have the ability to choose. So I think both parties suck. I think both presidents suck. And Kamala, I don't know her well enough to comment. I would ultimately vote Democrat, but I don't think the Democrats have done a good job in the last few years, especially, with Trump not having any wars and the economy doing okay. I don't think the Democrats have done themselves justice. I think it's a complicated decision. I think it's going to be a 51-49% vote. And I hope Kamala wins, but I don't think she will. But that's my thoughts as a neutral someone in Chile.
That's really interesting. Yeah. I mean, your perspective from the outside is honestly not that different from, I think, the way that people are thinking about it
Yeah,
in the
everyone thinks
US.
it's going to be close here.
Yeah.
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 Um,
I think Vivek I understand why he's not liked in terms of his personality. He comes across a little bit as arrogant, maybe the way he made this billions in the pharma industry. But I think he's a breath of fresh air for the Republican Party. I think most of what he says is logical. I think he's a smart guy. I think he can interview with anybody, and you want someone that can handle anyone in the press, not just Fox on the right, but Fox News, but also CNN on the left. And I
mhm.
think he can handle everybody in an intelligent manner. He can get on a podcast. He can get on our podcast as well and have
I
an
feel
intelligent
like I have
conversation.
so much to say, but he and I are just going to argue and it's going to turn into a
No, no,
debate.
I think Vivek is, like I said, I think he's the right energy for the Republican Party. And,
Mm,
Trump is just, he's in it for himself.
Shruti, you
yeah.
said I saw a video today my best friend
Hmm.
sent to me, and it was a man wearing a Kamala shirt, and
Hmm.
he goes to Costco, and someone goes up to him and says, "Hey, why do you support her?"
Mm,
And the gist of it is, he says, you
I don't like
know,
Trump.
no, he said, if we're thinking about our kids, yes, we're all ready for our daughters to see a woman in the presidency,
mm,
right? We're all ready for it. We've been ready for it for so long.
mhm,
What we don't want to see anymore is our little boys learning that
mm.
someone who has assaulted women and,
Right.
convicted of federal crimes, thinking that's okay for little boys.
Right.
So
Right.
to go
Hmm.
on your, I guess our topic today,
Yeah.
is we've been thinking about, yes, break that glass ceiling. Our little girls want to see this, but we haven't been thinking about what
What
are
the
boys
alternatives to
growing
it.
up thinking, saying, well, if he's our president, then this is okay to act this way. You
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I think it's definitely very true. There's people on the other side will probably say, like, we shouldn't just elect her because she's a woman. We need to be
Of
critical of her
course.
politics. And
Yeah.
that is true. I agree. Like, I think people are aware and conscious of that reality, but it is just appalling to me how somebody with the charges that he has is still even allowed to
And people still
like be
support
in
it.
this. Right. And people still support, not just support, respect
Yeah.
him. Right. Like it's mind blowing to me
Makes you
that
think
is
what
like,
half of this country is like,
Well, I think what they feel is that
mhm,
the government is not adding value to their lives, and
mm,
they feel that with the Republicans, they're going to have less of a tax bill to pay,
yeah,
and
a lot of
ultimately, Americans is about capitalism and having more money in their pocket to do what they want to do and have the freedom that they want to have. Ultimately, the people who are Republicans and more towards the middle, they feel that with Trump, there's going to be more money, and they feel like with Kamala and Biden, the money is going to go to a war that we actually want to get out of. And
a
actually, I
lot.
didn't like the way Biden. Just last point,
Yeah, go for
I didn't like the way Biden left Afghanistan the way he did, in such a rapid way and leaving so many people behind. I thought that was unacceptable. So that and Israel are
it.
for
Okay,
me two
now I
red
have to say
flags.
it. Do you really think if Trump wins, right, that after the long-standing history the US has with Israel, that things are going to change?
like,
No, I don't.
I
We're
honestly
talking
think
about
both sides
such a long
are,
history with Israel. One man isn't, I mean, and I think that's what a lot of people don't understand too. Like, yes, he's the president. We have a Congress that's going to decide so much, which is split. I mean, it's not that easy where we have one man or woman making the decision. It doesn't work that way in the US. And so, you know, having a Republican in the presidential office is not going to change our history with Israel. It's
I
not.
I want Shruti to actually become a politician.
Oh, I would love that.
Don't rule it
there's
out, Sabrina. Don't rule it out.
many,
I
many
don't. I'm in
potential.
awe of this girl.
Do you know how many Harvard people are actually politicians today in America in the Senate?
There are a lot.
Uh, a
I
big
don't know the
percentage.
number.
Well,
A big
okay.
percentage.
Yeah.
Okay,
On
we kind of jumped the gun. Rapid fire, Sabrina, or actually, I
Yeah.
want to know before the rapid fire. I want to know who does Shruti admire? Who are role models,
Hmm.
either American in India or dead or even dead or alive. Like, who are the 3, 4 people you look up to?
Um, honestly, like I feel like it's hard to ever name like one person with this question
Yeah, give us a
because
few.
I think there's pieces of people that are admirable, right?
Yeah,
And not one person is ever always a good person either.
sure.
So,
Like Elon Musk.
yeah, I think precisely. Yeah, I would say Nangeli was actually the number one person that has inspired me. I wrote about her early on in college, but honestly, like the type of guts and civil resistance really that her story embodies has always inspired me and has been a big part of the way that I think about what I do. In addition to that, I'm definitely very inspired by my grandmother. She is just like a force of resistance in and of herself. And same with my mother. I think a lot of this like fight back energy that I get comes from them, and how I've
A-
seen them stand up for themselves
any
in the
men?
kind of I will get there. Yeah, so definitely them and the way that they've stood up for things. As for men, I'd say like definitely my dad. He, is very kind hearted and hardworking in the way that he shows up for the family. And so,
Any men we
um,
may know of?
good question. um, there's this one TikToker who I don't know his name, but he's been telling his brother about periods and about menstruation. You might have seen him. He's like an Indian, like makes Instagram reels. I think I'm really inspired by him and just his ability to break the glass ceiling within his home. It's not always a woman that has to break the ceiling. And so, yeah, I've really loved just like seeing those videos. I always forward them to my dad and my mom.
Can you forward to us?
Yeah, happy to send you some reels as well.
Yeah, and we need to have difficult conversations with our children.
Sure.
And my sons are like under 10, all three of them.
Yeah. So I'll have to look up the name of this kid. I think he's about my age, and he has a younger brother, and his brother's like 12 years old, and he just gets in the car with his brother and he explains to his brother what periods are, but not just about periods, why we need to respect women, why we need to create safe spaces for women. And it's really just inspiring seeing an older brother figure who's setting the right example for, young boys to follow.
If you don't ask him on a date, I'm going to message him your number and I'm going to ask him to reach out to you.
Awesome. Sounds like a plan.
We're that Gen X, older Indian.
Yeah.
Everyone's calling me uncle and auntie nowadays, right? No, Sabrina?
All right.
It got me thinking, because yesterday my daughter came home and she said, Mom, and I know her friend, she's like, she said, someone said, you have a stain on your pants. So then she was sitting next to my daughter, Naima, and Naima's like, let me check. And she goes, yeah. And so this little girl just started her menstrual cycle this summer. So
wow.
Still getting adjusted and all. And then the little girl started crying.
Right.
So daughter took her, and I was like, oh, poor thing. So I'm wondering, do they even have products in the bathroom? So now I'm gonna
you should check that out. Can
I ask an old uncle man question about this menstrual thing?
Sure.
Yeah, and sorry if it's ignorant.
That's okay.
What age does this start at? Are we talking about 13, 14, or what age?
No, now earlier.
So
now earlier. It's changed with history.
Yes. So,
go ahead. You answer. Yeah.
Oh no, you can go for it.
Oh, I'd love to hear your answer, and then I can.
Yeah. So, I think in the past it's been around 14, 15, but with the development of kind of human evolutionary biology, really, that number has gotten a lot lower and has been, as low as 9, 10, 9. And so, yes. And so, this is due to a lot of different things. It's due to kind of the change in just the way women reproduce, and also the food we're consuming, the environments we live in, I don't know, people say hormones that go into all the stuff we're eating. So
you don't want to blame social media on this one, are you?
I don't think I can. So yeah, I think I definitely learned a lot about it in my human evolutionary biology classes. And there's just kind of a bell curve kind of shape that they draw for the reproductive progression of females in the course of history. And that has just shifted left. And so the age of puberty varies a lot. And this is why it's very important that we talk about it in elementary school. Because for me, I got my first period when I was in 5th grade, the summer, right before, something like that. So I was also very young. I think I was I don't know the exact age now. I was in the 10 to 12 range when I got my first period. So it was also early compared to my mom and her grandma and her mom and everything. And so it's just shifting to be younger. And so there's a bill in Florida recently that prohibited even talking about menstruation below the grade level of 6. And this senator was had no reason. He just arbitrarily chose 6th grade as the limit for when we should start talking about menstruation, when he doesn't know when puberty starts for girls, right? And so again, we see politicians making decisions on biology, and yes, male politicians making decisions on science and on biology that they are not qualified to make. And so
it's men's testosterone that's also dropping.
Yes.
History.
Yes. Yeah. Male fertility. Yeah.
I haven't read why.
Yeah. That I think, pockets
social
and
media?
Cell phones and food. Yes. Let's blame social media. No, I think it's everyone's right. Lifestyle, food, environment, safety, housing, air quality, health overall, I think is, really declining.
I thought it was there's
so there's definitely
every male testosterone.
It's so yeah, there's definitely a lot of inequalities in the space of reproductive justice. So yeah.
God, we've really spoken about everything today. Okay, rapid fire. Sabrina, do you want to start?
If you could swap lives with someone for one day, who would it be?
That would be you, Sabrina.
My dad.
Who is it?
My dad.
Your dad. I like that.
Okay. Um, sorry, I have to come up with next. Okay. Question: if your life was a theme song, title of a movie or title of a song, what would it be called?
Okay, so this one, it's called Have It All by Jason Mraz. My mom and I would listen to it in the car to high school and to college every day. So it's
Okay.
just become kind of like a overly optimistic and positive song to get you up on the days you're feeling down.
It's a good
All
one.
right, that's a good one. I need to listen to that one. If you could instantly become an expert in one skill or have a superpower, which would it be?
She already does.
Singing.
Singing?
I wish I could sing.
Oh, like your sister?
Yes, she's gotten what I can never have.
I would love to sing as well.
hmm
I sing in the
I mean,
shower.
I mean, I can sing. I just don't sound good. So maybe the talent is sounding good while singing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a follow-up question, part B. Taylor
hmm
Swift, yes or no? Fan or not?
Easy one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I like her even more now.
By the way, if Taylor Swift comes out and
hmm
says to everybody, her Swifties, go vote for Kamala, I am, then I will be like, you know what? Maybe Kamala wins this. But I
Wow.
don't see
So
her.
we have a bigger Swiftie here than myself.
Not at all. Not at all. Not at all.
No.
I
Oh,
just think
okay.
if she can affect the economy of
Right.
every
Yes.
country
I
she
mean,
goes to,
she.
I think she is so powerful. I think she's the Michael Jordan of this era, right? So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think she has the power. First of all, already most women are going there, right?
hmm
But I think Taylor Swift has the ability to get all the gays and a small percentage of men that are
Hmm.
thinking or not sure, undecided. So I
Yeah.
think
No.
she
Yeah.
will
If
be a
she
decider.
can, she can control the Super Bowl. She can do anything.
Yeah, but I don't think she will. I don't
Yeah.
think she will. Yeah.
Ah.
Um,
Well.
Sabrina, did you go or was it my turn?
Your turn.
Okay. Uh, if if you could or if you wanted to put a tattoos in your body, and those tattoos were brands of companies, and
Oh.
those brands, you could, because you tattooed them in your body, have those products or services free for life. What two brands would they be?
Oh my gosh. I don't know that I religiously follow anything like that.
Where do you spend the most money, or like what's your dream?
Oh,
You know.
well, I just have one guilty pleasure, I guess, which is YSL, Saint Laurent. I've just loved
Okay.
their designs and everything. There's absolutely no reason one should drop any amount of money with these luxury brands because I don't think they're any better than anything else. But I don't know what it is about their vibe. I've just always loved
Everything.
YSL.
All
Yeah.
right. That's a
That's
good
Um,
the one that's hard to
so
pronounce, right? V's hollow wrong. That one.
Saint
Yeah,
Laurent.
I'm probably saying it wrong. I'm saying it like a really
You're
whitewashed
you're saying it as an
American.
American. YSL.
Yes, and a very American accent. But yes, YSL
Sabrina,
is.
what's it called? The name?
Yves Saint Laurent. I
Oh,
don't know.
yeah, that sounded good. That sounded right.
Yeah.
Spot the shopper. Spot the shopper in the family.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, last question.
hmm
You have a billboard in New York City. Okay.
Okay.
Your billboard. You can write anything you want on it. Any message. What would it be?
Dare to care.
Dare to care. All right. I like that.
Um, Shruti, we do this podcast for entertainment. We
Yeah,
want to keep
of
our minds fresh. We like talking to people younger than us,
course.
smarter than us sometimes, not always. We've really enjoyed this conversation today, and I've actually taken a note. I've taken a
Yeah.
note that I'm going to share with you, and
Okay.
basically, it's my note to sons is date girl from Harvard.
Beautiful.
That's the note I took today, because you are inspiring, and I wish you all the best.
Thank
And
you.
it took guts for you to do what you did, and I'm glad you did. And I think the world needs more people like you. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's been awesome to chat with you both. Thank you so much for the opportunity and for having me here. Yeah, I'm really excited to have met you all, and best of luck with the future of Indian Explorers.
Thank you. Thank you so much for
Yeah,
being on it. And I'm going to leave with one more piece from your speech. I love this
sure.
part. I don't know, so I ask. I listen. I believe an important type of learning takes place, especially in moments of uncertainty, when we lean into conversations without assuming we have all the answers. I wish if everyone in the world believed this, we'd live in a very peaceful place. So thank you so much for sharing your knowledge with us, and wish you all the best on your move. Um,
Thank you.
we appreciate it. So
Say
thank
hi
you.
to
Yeah.
say hi to Warren Buffett from us. Yeah.
Will do. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. This has been another episode of Indian Explorers, definitely one of the favorites, and we hope you enjoyed it just as much as we did. Have a great day, everyone.